current bills payable for October 1st, 2023 through October 31st, 2023 in the amount of $19,505,489.77. Do I have someone to approve that, a motion to approve that? Moved by trustee Annis, support by trustee Gupta and Mrs. LaCouey.
I will need to abstain from this vote as we don't approve these bills before they're paid. And I have not received answers about my concern about management override of our financial controls. For example, back on July 31st, I noticed a strange set of 6 legal invoices that came to us at once. The only description on the invoices said disbursement fees, and it was signed okay to pay by our Deputy Superintendent of Business Operations, Matt McDaniel. It appears that over the course of several months, our district was funneling taxpayer money through a law firm, Collins and Blaha, to a PR firm, Bassett and Bassett. I asked questions about this, both privately and publicly, for over 100 days. Finally, after I contacted our financial auditor, the district answered that the law firm and the PR firm were engaged in this crisis response role to help our district identify and respond to negative criticisms leveled against the district via social media, news media, and copious FOIA requests.
Trustee LaCouey, so
Now,
you're
that's-
commenting on
Point of order,
these-
President Butel, I am substantiating my concern that was unaddressed about financial override of controls.
Okay, so nothing
So-
specific on this, though, I just.
It is about bills payable, because it first came up during bills payable, and this problem about financial override of controls, management override of financial controls, continues to go unaddressed. And I don't want to be accused of making unsubstantiated allegations. So I want to fully explain why I will need to abstain from voting on bills payable. So it's concerning enough, the activity that was going on. However, all the board can see is a notice of cash disbursement. We don't know what other activity could be going on like this. We do know that it happened several times. There's no purchase order. There is no scope of work document. There are no sublet invoices to show for what we actually paid. Administration has said that no written documentation exists for about $40,000 worth of work. It's like if I went on a business trip and I had to fill out a travel expense report, and instead of including receipts to show the services that I was using, I just included ATM slips. What kind of company would approve that? But unfortunately, that appears to be what we were doing in this case, and I don't know where else that has been going on. So that's why I'm concerned, and unfortunately, that's why I will continue to abstain from voting on this.
Trustee Blake.
On that same note, I'd like to say 2 things. One, I'll respond to that in a moment. I did ask when the first meeting on the board, if we could change to a process whereby all of the invoices were made available to trustees in advance. And I believe I was told that we're working on that. And I think I talked to Mr. Silveri, and he still said we're working on it. So I don't know what that means or where we are in the process or how difficult it will be, but I just think that's something we need to move to so that we don't continue to have these suspicions raised. In response to Trustee LaCouey, though, I would just say this. I too am concerned about the amount of time that it took for this to get resolved. I don't share her characterization of the whole situation, but I think it's problematic when it takes 100 days to get something resolved, to get to where we are, and I don't really understand why it took that long. And my concern is more, not so much that I think something terrible is happening, because I don't, but I hear these characterizations of the district as having all of these financial improprieties and all of this fraud. I don't think the facts bear that out, but when something like this happens and it lingers on, it makes people think that. I'm also concerned that we have hundreds of people that work in this district that come to work every single day, that work hard, that don't do anything wrong, and they're being somehow tarred whenever there's an allegation that there's all this bad stuff going on in the district. It reflects back on the employees ultimately. So I hope in the future, when whatever the situation is, that we can get that resolved faster. It's not fair to the people who work in this district to allow these narratives to fester and grow.
Trustee Weaver?
So I find it somewhat concerning that appointee Blake is calling this issue resolved because it's not resolved. There's plenty of questions. Again, a member of our community just asked a handful of them that absolutely are still open questions. To his point of the cloud of suspicion, that has been raised by myself as well, and why we've talked about needing an appropriate audit done, because again, there are unfortunately far too many questions that aren't answered correctly, that go way too long, and again, in this case, we actually got the answer that we are paying Bassett and Bassett through Collins and Blaha to surveillance social media, which the district was sued in federal court for violating a parent's First Amendment right, where in the depositions, it found out we were paying employees to do that and collect the information to be used to target critics of the district. This is said right in the memo. So we are outsourcing. We said, okay.
Trustee Weaver, can we please keep
No,
it to these bills?
I'm speaking
accounts
directly
payable?
to these bills. Collins Blaha's on this one. And I'm
I'm
addressing.
sorry, I just heard you talking about other employees, so.
Absolutely, because we paid them as well. And I'm referring to the memo that goes directly to these. So
But
again,
we're talking about accounts
I
payable.
understand you do not like the facts that are being addressed because
Trustee
you
Weaver,
sat on
have
the
an
board. You
opportunity
sat on the
at
board.
the end of the meeting
you
to talk
sat
about
on
anything
the,
that you
You
wish.
sat on
At
the
this
board.
point, we're talking about
I am
accounts
talking
payable.
about the Collins and Blaha payments, and I'm addressing
There-
the comments that you did not interrupt anybody else on that were made.
I am talking
so
about
again,
the accounts
I am
payable
talking
at this
about
point.
accounts payable.
Okay, as long as it occurs
I am talking about accounts payable.
with the ones that are on here right now.
I am talking about accounts payable,
As
just
long
like
as they have to
everybody,
do.
just like everybody else did. The fact that you sat on the board and you condoned the past behavior, and now you're upset that we are challenging, that we are
Trustee Weaver,
outsourcing.
Point
we
of
are
order,
out-
please.
We are outsourcing in the memo that specifically says we paid Collins and Blaha to pay Bassett and Bassett to basically do what we were sued for. And just for, again, people that
Trustee
sit here
Weaver, there
and
is
say,
nothing on these accounts payable.
Collins and Blaha
with-
is paid on here.
There
Collins
is
and Blaha
nothing
is paid
on
on here.
here, though, that has to do with,
Collins and Blaha is paid on here.
But on
and
those
I'm addressing
invoices, there is
the comments,
nothing
I'm
in regard
addressing
to
the
that.
other comments that were made. So again,
But we are
the memo
discussing
is clear.
the
So
accounts payable.
who authorized Collins and Blaha to start this activity? Who authorized it? It absolutely is a germane question. Maybe if you'd
This is
asked
not
more,
the
we wouldn't be getting
accounts-
sued as often.
this is not in the accounts payable right now.
Collins-
Are you talking about
Who
specifically who authorized something on these
authorized
bills?
Collins and Blaha to use Bassett and Bassett in this manner? Who authorized that transaction?
I have no idea.
He's no longer employed by the,
You know that?
well, his initials aren't on there, and he had the authority to do it, so you don't have to like it.
McDaniel, you signed it.
I seconded it, but the initial was,
Okay. Can we please, Mr. Silveri?
I have a comment. I'm a board member, and it's a board meeting.
I have recognized Mr. Silveri at this moment, so
Is
one
he going to
moment.
answer the question that was asked?
I'll speak to this issue later in the meeting. I don't want to get into a debate over it now.
We don't want to talk about finances during the financial section of the debate, of the
This
of
is
the
not the
meeting?
this is the
We're
accounts
Talking
payable
about
at this
accounts
moment.
payable.
Okay, trustee Lakui.
I just wanted to ask Trustee Blake how the situation has been resolved, because I'm wondering if you've seen a scope of work document or a purchase order or anything else that goes along with this. The explanation that we were provided, it actually doesn't make sense that there would be no written documentation. If the
Again, this has nothing to do with the
This has
accounts
to do
payable
with
at this moment.
financial override, it's management override of financial controls, which is
But that's not
why
what we're voting
I'm
on.
not-
We are voting
I
on
talked-
accounts payable.
I'm responding to Trustee Blake because he responded to my concern about this. And I'm wondering, has it been resolved? If it's been resolved, maybe I can vote on these items. You know, have you seen more than I've seen? Have you seen written documentation to lead me to believe that we're not actually having any problems?
I've not seen anything that's being kept from you.
Okay, so that's the issue that I have with bills payable, is that there should be invoices with descriptions of what services are being provided to us. This sort of thing has caused problems in other school districts, you know, like if you look at Detroit, for instance. Like, this is a
Trustee
concern.
LaCoue, if you
Our
have a
board
concern
shouldn't
about
be-
the overrides, so then why don't you draft something that you think should be taken up by the board that would correct whatever it is you're looking for? So why don't you draft that and bring it forward? Not on the day of a meeting, but a week beforehand, so that we have an opportunity to review it.
President Butel, are you okay with approving invoices that have no descriptions on them? If you got a credit card from somebody and it said $40,000 from the lawyers you hired, and they said, oh, we
Trustee
consulted
LaCoue?
with experts, so you don't
I
have to worry
agree.
about
I have
that.
asked as well that we have access to all of the invoices, which I understand that they are looking into trying to find a way to make that an option.
We were provided invoices, but there was nothing on them. Can you tell me what reason we would have for billing Bassett and Bassett through Collins and Blaha? What reason is there to do that instead of paying them directly?
Again, are you asking for some form of policy that would, anytime an invoice was received, that they would turn it back so that it had detail? I mean, is that what you're looking for? And if it is, then why don't you draft something and bring it forward?
I'm asking why our district, why RCS would bill a PR firm through a law firm. Just tell me why. Maybe we don't need a policy. Maybe if that's normal behavior, we were told this is normal. What was the reason for doing it in that way?
I don't know if anyone in the administration has an answer for that.
I'll speak to it later in the meeting.
I can think of no good reason for doing that except to skirt transparency law.
All right. Is there, Trustee Gupta? All right, is Trustee Blake?
I think the three people who know that are unfortunately people that we can't ask. Our superintendent's not here anymore. We fired the law firm. We were fired by the PR firm. I'm not saying that the way this went is the way I think it should have been done. I have issues with the way it was done, but at this point today, what can we do? Those people are not around. The conduct underlying is not anything that is criminal. It may not be what we want to have happen going forward, meaning the employment of this firm and what they were doing. So we can set up things so it doesn't happen going forward. We can set up things so that there's another layer of insight or of oversight on legal invoices. We can do things going forward. I just don't know what we can do going backwards.
All right. Trustee Weaver.
Appointee Blake, are you going to say,
I'm sorry, everyone at this table is a trustee, so please address them accordingly.
Appointee Blake?
Trustee Blake.
I'm going to
Trustee
ask,
Weaver,
I'm going to ask
please.
specifically, again, as you are a lawyer, would there not be any record of what was done? We're going to say, again, going off what the memo specifically says right on it, they identified crisis management. We would have no record whatsoever of any crisis in which they identified. We'd have no communication, and you're going to say that was solely communicated with one person? But yet, at the board meetings, we were told that we were going to get an answer, and then all of a sudden the answer didn't want to come out. So, as a lawyer, you're really going to say you believe that we would pay $40,000, put out a memo that says this is what Bassett and Bassett were, they were surveillancing social media
Trustee
to
Weaver,
identify
could you
crises.
please keep it to the
and have
topic
it
at hand, which is
respond,
the accounts
and we
payable?
have no record whatsoever? You
I
believe
did
that?
not say that that's how I would do it or that there shouldn't be records. I'm saying that it appears there are not. So this is the situation that we are in. I don't know how we find this out. We could look and see if there are any emails from Dr. Shaner to Bassett and Bassett. That's the only other thing I can think of. It's highly unusual that the whole thing played out the way it did. But what does that show? It shows that that this was an unusual situation. I haven't said that this is ideal. I will say that it's not that unusual for an attorney to bill a professional or an expert through their billing. It is unusual to never be able to find out what those are for. I will give you that. but here we are. So are we going to talk another hour about this? Are we going to talk next time? How about the time after that? I mean, how much time are we going to put into this?
Trustee Annis?